Welcome back to the balance sheet where we cover all things women's wrestling. This is a special episode, very brief, but myself and my co host,
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Billy.
we had a chance and the pleasure of attending AEW Dynamite this week in person, ringside, seats A1 and A2 in my home city, well, where I live, of El Paso. And we got a chance to see the first time ever women's closing the show, but it was not a wrestling match. It was just a main event promo segment to set up what we believe should be the timeless Moné all in main event July 12th in Dallas, Texas. So, since you were the visitor in my city, what were your thoughts on the segment?
Well, I got to start off by saying thank you. You were a very gracious host. I appreciate you having me in your city and showing me around a little bit in El Paso. Just the show in general, the El Paso crowd, I think you guys all saw it on TV, was incredible. Um, wasn't on TV, but Tony Khan comes out at the end, and the crowd actually started chanting pay per view, and he was like, "With your performance tonight, I have to consider it." So, the crowd was incredible. Um, Tony Storm and Mercedes Moné, the first meeting was actually exceeded my expectations. I, you know, being ringside, there was a lot of anticipation where once we found out maybe halfway through the show that it was going to main event, we were excited about that. But just kind of like what angle they take on the promo was top of mind. And I could not be more excited about the direction they took it. They mined into their past. They didn't ignore the fact that they were both in WWE together. But what I thought was really, really cool and doesn't happen on either side is I was just really excited to see them talk about it, but not in a bitter way, not in a, angsty way, but just like, hey, you know what? We were both there and now we're here because this is where destiny took us. I think that's a really great message for a main event. So, um, I mean, overall, this segment just entirely landed for me, and I will remember forever that I was there live. And I just really, really hope that it's this great kickoff to an amazing 6 weeks that we're going to get.
So, I've told you this before you showed up here that I have been to every single wrestling event that the then Sasha Banks, now Mercedes Moné, has performed in El Paso. I've been to all of them.
Yeah.
She has always been very, very over in this city. Obviously, because her hero is Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero is from here in El Paso. I think everybody knows that who listens to our podcast. But for the first time, he had an equal in the ring to her in this city.
Yeah.
Tony Storm is very over. Tony Storm is a main event talent.
Yeah.
Mercedes Moné is obviously a main event talent. She main evented WrestleMania. So what I loved about this segment is from the moment Mercedes picked up the microphone to the end of Dynamite going off the air, I was mesmerized by these two women. Like, it felt like a big marquee pay-per-view, first time ever. Here's my $50. Take it, Tony. I want to see these two on the biggest stage. I want to see the main event. Because what you said is correct. They did not bash each other. They complimented each other.
Yep.
They talked about their history with each other. I met you 10 years ago. You're a different person now. I'm different too. I used to be a boss. Now I'm a CEO. Tony Storm says, "You're the greatest ever, but I'm timeless. You have all the belts. I have the belt. I have the only belt." And I think what really set the stage for this to be an all-time segment, and if you don't believe us, we were in the crowd.
Yep.
Okay. It was one of the hottest wrestling crowds I've ever attended in my life.
My hottest, I would say, was Attitude Era. Stone Cold maybe competes, but in the last 10 years, the hottest.
But they felt like the two biggest stars on that show.
Yeah.
And the reason we know that is so we had the VIP experience. And look, we're going to talk about a segment here, but if you want to spend good money and get a very good wrestling experience, do the AEW VIP experience. It's very reasonably priced. You get a meet and greet. You get to ask wrestlers questions. We got to ask Thunder Rosa a question.
Yep. Thunder Rosa, AR Fox. Yep.
AR Fox. We got this bag of goodies. You got a $20 voucher to buy whatever you wanted at the concession stands. But like in a time where the WWE, they are charging exorbitant ticket prices and they're pricing out, the regular families. This is a really good wrestling experience. If you're a wrestling fan, not a tribalist, a wrestling fan.
Yep.
Now, back to the segment. The thing I loved about the segment is when Toni Storm stepped into the ring, he didn't even bring Luther. He said, "Here, Luther, you're going to stay here. This is me and her." And then she took the belt and laid it down in the middle of them and said, let's, this is the wild, wild west. You have your 6-shooter, I got mine. And let's duel, but respectfully duel. And, talking about they were in a different company. They both got flowers at the age of 23. Remember this, Mercedes, when she left the NXT roster to go to the main roster officially, her send-off, she got flowers from Triple H and Stephanie. When Toni Storm won the Mae Young Classic, she was 23. She got flowers. But both of them said they left a place that gave them flowers to chase their dream.
Yep.
And what I felt watching this thing up close is that these two women, this means the world to them. This to them is like, this is the apex. This is the crescendo for them. They want this to be the greatest wrestling match of all time. I think they're going to give us 6 weeks of amazing promos, backstage segments. I could see a case where these two never attack each other from behind, where they just literally, out of respect for each other, just play off of each other. It was brilliant. It is. Look, I have watched a lot of wrestling in my life. I'm from a city that is one of the hottest wrestling cities on earth, which is Toronto. I've seen Hogan rock. I've seen Hogan Warrior. I've seen Stone Cold 12 times at the peak of his powers. But as far as an in-ring segment that has nothing to do with the wrestling match, I don't know if I've seen a better one than this. There's only one other one I could think of, which was Bret Hart, 1999, and Goldberg in Air Canada Center, where
Steel plate,
but he sang Air O Canada. He talked about, you want to fight Steve Austin? I beat him every time we fought. That was amazing. But that still ended in a physical altercation. This did not. This ended in a dance-off. But you know what was so funny?
They did a little physical,
But they didn't hit anything. But it was like a joust. It was like, ooh, ooh, ooh. Like I said, I am super excited for this. I cannot tell you how great I think this is going to be.
Yeah, I echo everything that you said. If you're listening to this, you're on the YouTube. I posted the live video. I think we go back and forth between like shocked, awe, and quiet, and then just yelling "yeah" or whatever like we're excited about. But Mercedes, to me, you've been a fan. I've been a fan with her for a decade, as have you. Anyone who's a fan
Mhm.
of her. To me, this is the third piece of a triple pack. Legit bot, love it. This is the third piece of a triple pack of these all-time moments for her, and it's Brooklyn, it's Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair, WrestleMania 37, and it's Toni Storm versus Mercedes Moné at All In Texas. The Japan stuff is really cool. What she's done in NJPW is really cool. But as far as exposure and moment, I feel like this really resonates. And Tony said the line, little girls everywhere are going to be watching and say, holy shit, these bitches are crazy. And that's really what the underlying story being told here is that, were they treated poorly by WWE? Mercedes was not treated poorly by WWE. Was Tony treated poorly by WWE?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
She got to main roster and it was bad for her. And there's no excuse for that. It was bad for her. She wasn't treated with the level of respect that like a prodigy at her level probably should have. She wasn't some new rookie. She was very decorated with many good matches in Stardom and winning the Mae Young Classic. She had a 240-day reign as the NXT UK Women's Championship champion when that was the thing. So, but she said, we got our flowers and we left, and she didn't say anything negative. We left to fulfill our destiny, basically to chase our dreams and to be the best versions of ourselves. And there's this aspirational piece to this. Wrestling is so negative. Cody can't help but be negative in the ring and out of the ring when he talks about AEW. There's always an underlying like punch thrown. Punk does it too. Um, you know, Alistair, Rusev, different people have gone back and forth. It's a normal thing in wrestling. You leave one place, you shit talk the other. Excuse my French. I really love that both of them were like, hey, you know what? We weren't at the bottom. We weren't in the worst position, but we weren't getting what we dreamt of. And this is what we dreamt of. And we're chasing together what we dreamt of. And I really felt that as a huge selling point for this match. And props to Tony for not having any sort of backstage or on screen or in the ring confrontation for a year plus to allow that to marinate and be as impactful as it was. It was awesome.
When she said these bitches are crazy, it was a double entendre because they are going to be crazy in the ring against each other, but they're
Yes.
also crazy for walking out on the greatest wrestling company of all
Of all
time.
time.
And they walked out where the future was really unknown. Like they were probably making, Mercedes was making really good money. Top
7 figures.
7 figures. Toni Storm was making probably high six. She's on the road every day with Charlotte and Sasha Banks and learning. And she just literally, so on her Instagram page, she posted a picture of her and Mercedes the last night of her WWE tour. They hugged in
Her
the ring.
last moment in the ring,
Yep.
hugging Mercedes.
And from the rumor is that, she told her, hey, I'm thinking about leaving. And she goes, you should leave and follow your dreams. And that's what she did. Like she literally left. They let her out of her contract. She shows up in AEW. And I said this months ago. In the history of wrestling, there has been very few reinventions of a character that are as good as rocker chick Toni Storm to timeless Toni Storm. I think I
Right.
missed one the last time we talked. Matt Hardy to delete, Matt
Oh,
Hardy.
Matt Hardy was a nothing in that tag team and turned himself into almost equal. Not equal. Jeff is a legend, but yeah, I agree with
Jeff
you.
is Jeff,
Delete.
but
Yeah.
he reinvented himself with the delete and all that stuff. It's very hard to do in professional wrestling. Like I used to think that the best reinvention of all time was, you know, Macho Man Randy Savage going to the Macho King. But like he was pretty much Macho Man just with a crown. Like
Yeah.
as a kid, I thought he was
Ate
different,
it
but
up though. It
he
was
was
good.
great. But Hulk Hogan going to Hollywood Hogan is probably, if we could be
That
honest, it's probably the best, right? Like,
Surfer Sting to Sting is the best one. Him and
okay,
Tony,
so
I think, are the best.
Crow String, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, because he went from this.
Happy to dark, and
The thing with Tony though is she's gone to such a different character. It's just like you don't even remember Rocker Tony Storm to the point where she came back and acted as Rocker Tony Storm. She got such a big pop, but like she's been so good. And look, I don't think anybody could say Sasha Banks, Mercedes Renato, Mercedes Monet was poorly pushed in WWE. I think what you could say is they didn't maximize her.
yeah,
Tony Storm, they screwed up. Like they
yeah,
completely screwed up.
yeah. So I'll give a basketball analogy, right? Um, if Tony was, imagine that both of them are. I'm not even going to make it controversial. Pick your favorite basketball player: Steph Curry, or LeBron James, or Nikola Jokic. Pick one. Tony was that person on the bench playing 22 minutes a game. Not good enough. Mercedes was not on the bench, but she wasn't running the offense. Right? So, like, she was in the starting lineup, but LeBron James needs to run the offense. Nikola Jokic needs to run the offense. Steph Curry, the offense needs to run through getting Steph Curry the ball, right? Sasha Banks was not running the offense. She was Klay Thompson, right? In the Steph Curry analogy. Klay Thompson, that's great. Klay Thompson's a Hall of Famer. But if Klay Thompson was a better basketball player than Steph Curry, he's not. If he was, it'd be weird that he took a back seat. When Kevin Durant jumped onto the Warriors, the offense ran through Kevin Durant because Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant. So, not to get down a basketball analogy, but Mercedes just wasn't given the ball as the lead of the offense, but she was out there. Tony was like hoping to play, and that's what people don't maybe know if you guys are new listeners or maybe new to wrestling. When Tony got brought from NXT to WWE, Mercedes was her mentor on the road. Back when they were doing house shows all the time, the main roster women were assigned as mentors. Naomi was Sasha Banks' mentor back in the day. Paige was like Becky and Charlotte's mentor. That kind of wasn't really happening post-COVID, but Mercedes was still like, hey, her and Tony had a relationship back from actually Evolution, marketing and all that stuff. And yeah, you're right. Tony was like unhappy, and Mercedes was like, hey, I've been unhappy. You should take some time off if that's what your heart tells you. And I think that's a really important part of this story because, Tony's words in an interview post leaving was, I could have stuck around, wrestled at WrestleMania, and been miserable the next day. And I just decided that wasn't right for me. And a lot of courage with the money she was making, and WrestleMania is the dream, right? So I just love that Tony did this, reinvented herself, and now one of the biggest stars in the history of wrestling has also kind of done that similar thing, and they're gonna clash together in All In. It's if you wrote it down, it'd still be hard to execute, and it's accidentally come together like this.
So I want to apologize to our good friends, if you're listening out there from the 313, which is Detroit, because
Detroit.
my co-host here, he's a diehard Pistons fan,
Yeah.
watches every game, thinks Cade Cunningham is going to be the next one. Probably watched when the Pistons were terrible.
Uh,
Right?
yeah.
Yet he missed who Toni Storm is as the basketball player. She's Chauncey Billups.
Oh God, you're
So
right.
Cha-
That's a
so
great
Chaun
analogy.
so Chauncey Billups was a very high draft pick of the Boston Celtics.
Number 3.
Third, right? Now, the guy who got taken ahead of him, as great as Chauncey is, that's the guy you have to take, which is Tim Duncan. And then I think it was Van Horn, maybe.
Van Horn, yeah.
Okay. So Chauncey Billups was such a bust in Boston. 6 months in, you know where they traded him? They traded him to the Toronto Raptors.
Oh yeah.
They traded him to the Raptors. That was like the wasteland of the NBA at that point because he was like a nothing player. He goes to Detroit as a free agent, and he pretty much becomes the face of, maybe they're not a dynasty because they only won one championship, but like my 2017 Eagles, they knocked off, as him with the leader, the juggernaut, right? Like
Yeah.
my Eagles knocked off Brady and the Patriots, and your Pistons knocked off a Shaq Kobe Laker team. And I think nobody has changed their career narrative and trajectory more than Chauncey Billups, who went from bust to Hall of Famer, NBA Finals MVP, also went to Denver and reinvented himself again and almost took that team to the finals, and they ran into a Kobe team. So I think Toni Storm is Chauncey Billups. That's who
Oh,
I think she is.
it's a good analogy. Boston, Toronto, then I want to say Minnesota. He signs a
Yes.
1-year prove-it deal with the Pistons. We make the Eastern Conference Finals, sign him long term, and then we made another 5 Eastern Conference Finals. We only won 1 title. We went back to back. The second year was when Rasheed Wallace, love him, left Robert Ory on the Spurs Open in Game 5, and that kind of probably, that series was blouses there. Even though we won Game 6, people forget we won Game 6 on the road. But
Huge win. But I mean, you
yeah,
got to think, right? You guys lost to the '05 Spurs, who won the title. You
yeah,
lost to the '06 Heat, who won the title.
correct.
You lost to the coming out party of LeBron James in
45
'07.
special.
Right now, now the '07 Cavs did not win the title.
No.
You lost to the '08 Celtics, who did win the title.
Yep.
So even though your team didn't win more than one championship, they are part of NBA history, whether you want to talk about them or not, because it's probably an era that they want to pretend didn't happen. It was low scoring. It was more defense.
And now everyone complains no one plays defense.
There was the brawl in the palace, the malice at the palace, as they call it. But I don't think I could think of a better analogy for Toni Storm than Chauncey Billups, because a lot of people, when she got the WWE main roster, thought she was like a bust. Like they thought, okay, he's good in
Yeah.
the small pond, but she gets to and now she has proven everybody wrong. And honestly, I hope, and again, I never thought I would say this a year ago. When we started this podcast, secretly, I never said it in front of everybody, but I always was praying, hey, one day Mercedes go back to WWE. Now, I don't care if she ever goes back. Like, to me, I'm completely happy with what I get from her in AEW. I think she'll reinvent herself there. She'll be allowed to reinvent. She gets 20-minute pay-per-view matches. I'm very excited about the work she's doing. And I don't think Timeless Toni Storm will be Timeless Toni Storm in WWE. I think they will water her down. And they have to, because they won't let her say half the stuff she does. My point is, I was so happy as a wrestling fan this past Wednesday that you and I got to attend ringside, and the electricity that these two women generated could have lit up El Paso because, like, that was a crowd that was hot from the very beginning. And the main event comes on, and they were not like less hot. They were super hot. And here's the thing: we don't talk ratings on the show, even though we are very capable of doing it. That segment is one of the very few segments in the history of AEW Dynamite where the main event segment got a significant amount of more viewers than everything else on the show. And I want to break this down for everybody as we kind of close out this brief episode. When you see a number on the quarter hours from WrestleNomics or Meltzer or whoever, they say, okay, 700 and was it 705,000 people watched it?
Yep, 705. Yeah.
Okay. What that means is 705,000 people watched the entire 15 minutes aggregate. Like, they believe that an average of 705,000 people watched the whole segment. That's what that means. So what it really means, and I did some homework for this because I knew we were going to do this episode. I talked to some people in the TV business that I know. I talked to some people who work at Time Warner. They believe that 1.1 million people watched some part of that segment. And I didn't even tell you this before we got on because I wanted to save it. But 705,000 is the 15-minute run. So they watched the whole thing, average. But 1.1 million people watched some parts of that segment. No other segment, even the lead-in from Big Bang Theory, did probably more than 850,000 people. So this is a big money match. This is a big money main event. And Toni, you did a great job. You put on a great show for us. Collision was hot. Dynamite was hot. But please, you're competing against Evolution. You're competing against Saturday night's main event, which is going to have John Cena, which is going to have Lesnar, or not Lesnar, Goldberg. It's going to have a bunch of stars. Good. NXT is there the same time. Let these two women main event. It's the only way you can get the spotlight off of WWE. You gotta be history making. You cannot just end with Hangman Moxley. And look, we can admit this. We were in that crowd. Moxley's very over.
So
He's
Hangman
very
too.
over. Yeah. Hangman's very over. But those two women felt like main event players, and nobody in that crowd was like, oh my, nobody was. The thing I was so proud about my city was nobody was misogynistic towards them. Nobody was cackling or making cat calls. They were just like, these two women are the shit, and we are going to cheer them on, and we're going to cheer both of them on. There were CEO chants. There was Toni chants. There were signs for both. It was tremendous. And honestly, I wish every single wrestling fan who listens to our show, who downloads our show, who subscribes to our show could have been in that crowd, because it would have been one of the all-time experiences you have ever had as a wrestling fan. It was great.
It absolutely was. The ratings part I think is super important. And Twitter, everyone in their 140 characters or whatever, you can do more than that now, but everyone's like, oh, the overrun, and people are expecting a different show, and so they're not really watching wrestling. Just to be clear, the overrun usually loses viewers for AEW Dynamite. It did last week. It did the week before. It did the week before. And when they don't have an overrun, whatever. But almost all of their overruns lose viewers. This overrun gained. I didn't know the 1.1 million number. That's awesome. Doesn't shock me. This feud is also doing incredible numbers on social media. 3 million views on Facebook, which Hangman winning the Owen, Mercedes winning the Owen, Toni and Mina kiss from the pay-per-view and stuff. Those aren't even past like 1.5 million, I don't think. This one did 3 million overnight. Just the video on Facebook. 1.9 million as of this morning on Instagram. I haven't looked recently, but it really is the most protected match in wrestling, and
Yeah.
it's actually with so much TV, right? So you got Raw on Netflix. Netflix wants big matches. You have SmackDown. You have 12 PLEs a year on the WWE side. I think AEW has 10 pay-per-views a year, 52 collisions, 52 dynamites. Nothing's protected anymore. And I mean, Moxley Hangman have wrestled 13 times.
I mean,
3 times one-on-one. Nothing's protected, and this match has been protected. So
look at WWE, right? They had, in my opinion, they have two. Everybody wants these two women's matches. Everybody wants Bianca Rhea,
yeah,
and everybody wanted Io and Stephanie. And without even announcing it, they just threw Io Stephanie on a Raw because they wanted to get the hottest Netflix rating they
Papa
could get,
rating, yeah.
right? And they didn't even protect it. And here's what I want to say about you. You made a point that people don't, for whatever reason, people don't want to give Mercedes credit for anything. Like there's
Anything.
a huge amount of us. We call ourselves the crew. We are fans of hers. She's a tremendous all-time talent. She's the reason we started this podcast. She's amazing. But there's like the other side of the coin that wants to nitpick at her. She's not a draw. We're going to talk about her microphone skills on, our regular weekly episode. But here's what I will say that drives me in batshit crazy about not giving her the credit. Stephanie Vacour is by far the biggest draw in NXT. By far.
Leaps and bounds.
He gets the credit for that.
Yep.
If it weren't for Mercedes Moné, you do not get Stephanie Vacour the way you get her today. You don't. Because even if she signed with AEW, she's not going to be the same person.
Or if she signed with WWE on less momentum, not the same.
Yeah. She had one of the best matches with Mercedes, and she got signed, and they pushed her to the moon. But my point is, she gets all the credit. And look, I'm not going to say who this person is, but you know who I'm talking about because I told you this. I heard this, and it drove me I wanted to stick my head through the wall. Somebody in the wrestling media said, I was amazed that Mercedes Moné was in the ring with Toni Storm and didn't look like a lesser star. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to log off because this is making me really mad. Because it's like, wait a minute. When has Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks ever looked like the lesser star in any feud where he has been given equal platform? Yes, against Alexa Bliss, she looked lesser than because she was made to look like a loser. So she did look lesser than because they told her, go look lesser than. You can't get over. We're going to make you not get over. But for people to say that, oh my God, Toni Storm is bringing her spotlight on them. Do people realize how much of a bigger worldwide star Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné is than Toni Storm? Do they realize? I don't think they do, but it's like she gets credit for nothing. The rating pops.
Nothing.
Oh, well, Toni Storm's over. Yes, Toni Storm has always been over. But she wasn't doing that rating with Jamie Hayter. She wasn't doing that rating with Paige. She wasn't doing that rating with Mariah May. She wasn't doing that rating with, I don't know who else she's feuded with, Mina. He's doing the rating with the other, because you got to have two people to draw the money. Not very few wrestlers can draw with anybody. Stone Cold could draw with anybody. He could draw with you. They could say he's fighting Billy. People will show up. Very few people could do that. But, we got to start, not us. The wrestling media has got to put some respect on her name. They really do, because it's getting to the point of annoying.
No, I mean, we got years worth of data that says that she draws. I think Toni reinventing herself has been gigantic. You laid it out perfectly, but it's kind of in that bubble still. And, you know, Toni has an all in match that was 8 minutes long. You know, and it was pre timeless Toni, but, you know, there are other things at play here. And the women getting more time, which we're always advocating for, that's a newish thing. I think we touched on it last week. Double or Nothing had 10 women on the card, and probably the most minutes of women wrestling on AEW card ever. I'm sure is the case. And so these are the things that it's like they're very obvious what changed, what was different from 2 years ago that's different now. But you know, it's just the whole internet and the wrestling community in general, which is, you know, I like to say you can't change it, but we also do this podcast because we try to change it and we try to get that perspective out there and be different. So no, I mean, it's kind of wrapping up. Again, thank you for hosting me in El
Oh,
Paso.
anytime.
What a
And
wrestling town. You know, I had
it
you
is.
in Nashville last year, and that's a pretty famous match, right? You had Swerve and Hangman. Not for this podcast, right? It's men's wrestling. Infamously, Camille and Mercedes kind of became a thing at that show, which is didn't end up being great. But the Nashville crowd was good. The El Paso crowd was you know, again, the last time I remember a crowd being that hot for a card was, I mean, I saw Stone Cold and The Rock main event with, I think, Kane, The Undertaker, Kane and Mick Foley, some combination of that, 1999 at the MCI Center in Washington,
Oh my,
D.C.
that was. Whew.
Yeah, it was a minute ago. So nothing else I've been to has been as hot as the one on Wednesday. So it was awesome.
I think as you wrap up here, the El Paso County Coliseum which is where Dynamite was held, is a very famous wrestling arena. That's where the Guerreros, when they had their territory here in El Paso, Eddie's dad, Eddie's grandfather, they had the territory in El Paso County Coliseum. It's a very famous wrestling arena. They ran a show every week. And the acoustics, it's a very old building. Look, it's not going to win any awards for, you know, ambiance or whatever, but it has like a charm to it because it has
Yeah.
those old school acoustics and everything is loud, but the crowd, like, it was. And here's the one thing I will tell all of you AEW fans out there who are loyal AEW fans and you love AEW and you want AEW to be the biggest it could be. Myself and Billy, we asked everybody who was in our VIP group, hey, are you going to All In? Are you going to Evolution? And everybody was like, we're going to All In. Like every single person already bought their ticket for All In.
Yep.
Now, you might think, well, oh, you're in Texas. Okay. El Paso to Dallas is further for me than Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I can get to Los Angeles quicker than I can get to Dallas. So it's not close. It's a drive.
It's
But
a 2-hour flight. I just did it.
Yeah, and the fact that we saw father and son, husband and wife, father, mother, kids, all of them are going to All In. If you're an AEW fan, be very, very proud that I feel AEW is getting a lot of momentum.
Yeah.
And as wrestling fans, we should want AEW to be the hottest it can be because it'll only push WWE to be good.
Yeah.
When WWE was really bad, you know when it was really, really bad? When they had no competition.
Nothing to live up to. Yep.
And there's a very famous story about that, and I'll end on this. Mick Foley came to El Paso to do an autograph signing. And somebody in the session asked them a question. They said, when did you know WWE was kind of going this way, which is why you went to TNA? And he said, Eddie Guerrero did a segment where he was singing I can't remember what the song was. He was just singing, and it went on for 12 minutes. And Mick Foley went up to Eddie Guerrero and said, "Oh my God, you're going to get in so much trouble when Vince finds out you went so long. That is that segment, Eddie, is not good. We're going to lose so much ratings." And he goes, "Vince called the whole segment. Vince told me to do it. And he was in my ear the whole time. And he said, keep going, keep going. I'm entertained." And Mick Foley said, "This is what happens when you have no competition. You just do what you want. You run amok." So, with that being said, we're going to wrap here. You will still get a regular balance sheet this week. We have a lot to cover.
Tons. We didn't even
Spoiler
touch on
alert.
any of it.
We
Yeah.
didn't touch on any of it, but spoiler alert, here's what you're going to get. You're going to get, it's official now. Mariah May is going to the WWE. You will get from both of us how she'll be booked. And my colleague here, my co-host, he thinks we're going to get a bottleneck at the top of the WWE women's division,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that. We're going to also talk about how Stephanie McCour, with, like I said, sorry about this, Billy, with the worst prediction in the history of the balance sheet, right?
Terrible. The worst
Sunday,
ever.
he says, you
My
know
worst
what?
take ever. Yeah.
Memorial Day, he says, "Hey, Stephanie McCour, I don't know when she's going to lose. She loses the next night, and she lost to somebody nobody thought she'd lose to, and she's already gone from NXT. She's on Raw.
It's only up from here. I can't have a worse take than that.
She's on this Monday night. We're going to talk about an unbelievable Bianca and Naomi segment that opens SmackDown. The Money in the Bank match has one more competitor in it. We'll find out who that is, with Stephanie being in the match Monday night. And we're going to talk about, should AEW absolutely do Timeless Money main event? And if they don't, what does that mean for the future of the women's division in AEW? Because in my opinion, if they don't main event, they are telling all of us that it doesn't matter how hot the women get and whatever they can do, they'll never main event.
Yeah.
So we're going to
Has to
talk
be the
about
main
that.
event.
We're going to talk about that on our regular episode, but we're going to post this very soon. YouTube only exclusive. You will not get this episode on Spotify. You will not get this episode on Amazon or RSS or Samsung, all of our other outlets. This is a YouTube exclusive. This is almost replacing Have You Some Shame this week, because we were live. Enjoy. We will see you guys on our next episode.
Thanks, everyone.